The name I may come from the sound people make when they see one, a sharp cry of fear. That fear has followed this animal for centuries. In Madagascar, many communities consider the a harbinger of death. If one points its extraordinary finger at you, legend holds, you will die before the year is out. Entire villages have been abandoned after an I appeared nearby. The animal is killed on sight in some regions, not out of aggression, but out of terror. And yet the I is not a demon. It is a primate. The world's largest nocturnal primate, in fact. A creature so anatomically bizarre, so unlike anything else on Earth, that when European naturalists first encountered it in the 18th century, they could not agree on what it was. Some classified it as a squirrel. Others, a rodent. It took decades before science accepted what the I actually is, a lemur. An ancient lineage, shaped by isolation into something that looks like evolution's rough draft. Madagascar split from mainland Africa roughly 160 million years ago. The animals stranded on that island were cut off from the predators, competitors, and pressures that shaped life everywhere else. Evolution, freed from those constraints, ran strange experiments. And the I is perhaps the strangest result of all. It emerges only at night. In the dense rainforests of eastern Madagascar, hours after sunset, a pair of enormous golden eyes open in the canopy. The I's eyes are disproportionately large for its skull, an adaptation for seeing in near-total darkness. They catch the faintest trace of light and seem to glow when illuminated, two amber lanterns moving through the trees. The body attached to those eyes is compact and dark, covered in coarse black fur that gives it a disheveled, almost frantic appearance. The ears are enormous, bat-like, and independently mobile, rotating to track sounds the way a satellite dish tracks a signal. But it is the hands that stop everything. The I's fingers are long and thin, skeletal, almost like something excavated rather than grown. And the middle finger on each hand is extraordinary. Slender as a twig, 3 times the length of the others, with a ball and socket joint unlike any other primate on Earth. This finger is a precision instrument. It is the I's key to survival. Here is what happens when an I hunts. It moves across the surface of a tree trunk and begins to tap. Rapid, methodical tapping, covering the bark in a systematic grid. It is listening. Not with its eyes, not passively, but actively, the way a doctor listens to a chest, the way a geologist reads rock. Beneath the bark, colonies of wood-boring beetle larvae live and tunnel through the wood, leaving hollow chambers as they feed. The I detects those chambers. It reads the difference in resonance between solid wood and hollow space, and it does this at a rate of up to 8 taps per second. No other primate forages this way. Percussive foraging, scientists call it. It is a technique also used by woodpeckers, which evolved the same solution on a completely different branch of life, with completely different anatomy, on a completely different continent. The I arrived at the same answer through an entirely independent path. This is convergent evolution at its most elegant, and most unexpected. Once the I locates a larval chamber, it uses its incisors to cut through the bark. Those teeth are another anomaly. Unlike every other primate, the I's incisors grow continuously throughout its life, the way a rodent's do, replaced from the root as they wear down. The teeth are powerful enough to cut through bamboo, through dense hardwood, through materials that would defeat an animal twice its size. Then comes the finger. The long, thin, extraordinary middle finger slides into the hole and, with a precision that borders on surgical, hooks the larva out of its chamber. The process takes seconds. The I moves on, tapping, listening, cutting, extracting. A single animal may cover 2 to 4 kilometers of forest in a single night. This is what makes the I irreplaceable. In the absence of woodpeckers in Madagascar, the I occupies that ecological role. It controls populations of wood-boring insects. It opens bark for other animals. It is a keystone species in a forest that has no substitute for it. If the I disappears, that role disappears with it. And the ai is disappearing. The forests of Madagascar have been reduced to roughly 10% of their original extent. /burn agriculture, charcoal production, illegal logging, the pressures are relentless and the forest continues to shrink. The ai requires large territories, sometimes exceeding 200 hectares per individual. It reproduces slowly. A female gives birth to a single offspring every 2 to 3 years. The young remains dependent on its mother for roughly 2 years before becoming independent. In a species that lives perhaps 20 years, that reproductive rate leaves almost no margin for error. The International Union for Conservation of Nature lists the ai as endangered. The combination of habitat loss and persecution, killed for being a bad omen, killed because it occasionally raids coconut and sugar cane crops, has placed the species in genuine peril. There are no precise population estimates, because the ai is nocturnal, solitary, and inhabits terrain that is difficult to survey. What researchers do know is that the numbers are declining, and the trajectory is not good. Conservation projects in Madagascar have made progress. Protected areas, community education, captive breeding programs, slow work, difficult work, rarely dramatic enough to make headlines. But without it, the ai's survival is uncertain. There is something quietly remarkable about an animal that survived 160 million years of isolation, that evolved one of the most specialized foraging tools in the natural world, that fills an ecological niche no other creature on Earth occupies, and that is now threatened not by a predator or a pathogen but by a superstition and a chainsaw. The ai has been pointed to as a sign of death for centuries. The irony is devastating, and worth sitting with. The animal that locals fear will cause their death is dying. Not because nature turned against it. Because people did. The creature that was called a demon, that was killed to protect villages from imagined catastrophe, turns out to be the one that needed protection all along. And here is the final fact that changes everything learned so far. The word ai, that fearful cry, in Malagasy, one of the most common interpretations is simply this: I don't know. When early Malagasy speakers were asked by outsiders what to call the creature, some accounts suggest they replied with that phrase, uncertain, or perhaps unwilling to name something they believed should not be named. The most feared animal in Madagascar may have been given its name by people who refused to acknowledge it existed. It exists. Barely. And entirely on its own terms. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit like and subscribe for more incredible facts.